And the guy had a look at the scans, and he said, well, basically, he said, well, what are you doing here? And I said, well, my urologist said to come here for this procedure. And he said, well, look, apart from just a tiny amount of swelling still inside the bladder that's left from, and he actually called it inflammation. It's the first time anyone's actually mentioned inflammation to me. But he said that everything's normal. And he said, you just go home. And they sent me a letter the very next day to say that they'd taken me off the list, that the procedure was no longer necessary.
Mike, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, completely by accident, because what happened to me is that a little over 18 months ago now, I was having all these problems with my urinary system, and the doctors wanted me to go to see a urologist, which I wasn't too keen on. And I started doing some research, as you do, and I found Dr. Berg, who had a video about shrinking your prostate, because everyone was saying, "Oh, it's your prostate's enlarged," it's called, which is common with blokes my age. And his video, it was only about shrinking your prostate. It wasn't specifically about diet, although it said cut out the carbs, take zinc and vitamin B1. And I thought, well, I'll just give it a try. And within 4 days, all my problems went away. And I thought, this is incredible. And so I started watching more and more of his videos. And obviously he was going on about the keto diet. And I thought, well, this is working well so far. Maybe I should give it a try. So I started on the keto diet. And everything was going quite well until I started eating fruit, because I'm on a farm. We've got 1,000 apple trees here, and a friend of mine he's got apricot trees just down the road. I ate one of his apricots. It's organic, sweet as. I had one, and next day my urine looked like black tea. And I actually contacted Dr. Berg, pardon me, and he actually replied on YouTube, and he said, "Oh, it's just kicked you out of ketosis." I thought, that's really extraordinary. Anyway, everything went fine again, and then a few weeks later, I started eating apples because it was apple season, and we've got really delicious apples here. And I mean, everything went haywire, and so I'm obviously fructose intolerant in the extreme now. My doctor insisted I went to see a urologist. The urologist. Oh, first I had these scans, and it showed like serious abnormalities. One side of the floor of my bladder was really thick, like I reckon at least 5 times as thick as it should have been. And then they found this other thing inside my bladder that was shaped like a mushroom. And of course, everyone panicked and thought I had bladder cancer, including my wife, who's a nurse. So she insisted that I get a cystoscopy urgently, on the advice of the urologist, who did his thing, and they found no cancer. But I mean, after that, I had huge problems because I was passing blood, I was passing clots. It was really terrible. And the results of they found no cancer. They couldn't work out what it was. And so I eventually decided that obviously I can't eat fruit. And having seen all these other guys on YouTube about carnivore, I thought I'll go carnivore. So I've been carnivore for 12 months now. And everything else improved, except my bladder issues. They took ages and ages and ages. By Christmas last year, things had improved, but since Christmas I've had 2 urinary tract infections, which are very uncommon for blokes. Women get them all the time, but we're not supposed to. And on top of that, it was really weird because most UTIs are caused by E. coli. And I never had E. coli in my urine. It was always a streptococcus, which is all over your skin. I mean, we're all covered in it. It's common in hospitals and that sort of thing. And I started using test strips. I bought these test strips online. You dip them in the urine, and there's all these coloured patches on them, and they tell you if you've got leukocytes, protein, blood, ketones even. And I always had ketones, obviously, because I'm in ketosis all the time. But the blood one was always the one that worried me most, because the darkest patch was dark green, and you're supposed to wait 60 seconds before you actually get an accurate match with the color chart that comes with the test strips. Mine were going black like instantly. Well, not dark green, black. And that just wasn't improving until earlier this year, probably about 3 months ago. In 1 week, it went from black to normal, and it's been fine ever since. Now, when I saw the urologist last year, he was adamant that I needed this procedure called a transurethral something or other. They cut a slit inside your prostate, actually, to increase the size of where the urine comes out in the urethra to improve urine flow. I wasn't too keen on having any of that done. And this time, because we decided we were going to go public rather than go private, because the last time it cost us $4,000, and it's not like we could afford to spend $4,000 every time something was going wrong. And the waiting list in Tasmania is really long, so I've waited months and months, and then they had to cancel it, and then I had to postpone it because my wife got COVID. And anyway, to cut to the chase, I went to see them last week, and they had actually booked me for a urine test, a blood test, and a CT scan of my kidneys and all the plumbing. And I didn't know the results of that, and I didn't even hear anything about it for over a month, because there was all this mucking around. Anyway, so I went to see them last week, and the guy had a look at the scans, and he said, well, what are you doing here? And I said, well, my urologist said to come here for this procedure. And he said, well, look, apart from just a tiny amount of swelling still inside the bladder that's left from, and he actually called it inflammation. It's the first time anyone's actually mentioned inflammation to me. But he said that everything's normal. And he said, you just go home. And they sent me a letter the very next day to say that they'd taken me off the list, that the procedure was no longer necessary. And of course, I'm over the moon with that, because I'm not into medical procedures at all, if I can help it. So to me, it just proves that the carnivore diet has actually healed all my problems. Funny enough, I mentioned the diet to this doctor that I saw at the hospital, because he was different from the one that I saw last year, and it went straight over his head. It's just like, next, which is the normal thing when you're seeing doctors. They just push you through as fast as they can. Anyway, so that's it. I'm fixed. The only thing that's still got me concerned, and I thought I'd mention this time around because it might be of interest to some of your other followers. I think like last time I spoke to you, I said that my blood pressure had gone back to normal, because I've had chronic hypertension for 30 years or more, but it crept back up, and absolutely everyone that I watch online who's gone carnivore, their blood pressure's gone right back to normal, and mine is just not wanting to. I even went back on blood pressure pills, but even they didn't work. Now I found this new guy on YouTube. I think his name's Bracker. Have you heard of him?
Gary Bracker.
Gary Bracker, that's him. And he's into this methylated it's a vitamin B thing. Anyway, some people, and I could be one of them because my hypertension has never been explained. Some people might have genetic disorders that stops you from processing an amino acid called homocysteine, which I'd never heard of until I met this guy online. Have you heard of it? Anyway, if you've got high homocysteine, it can cause you to have high blood pressure. Unfortunately, my keto doctor is on holidays at the moment. She's gone skiing. So I'm going to wait until she comes back because I guess none of this is particularly urgent, but I'm going to get a blood test to see if I'm high in homocysteine and see if I can methylate my way out of that. Otherwise, I've lost another kilo since I last saw you. Everything's fine. Well, I'm just like, I don't think I've ever been healthier. I just wanted to come back and report that all of these other problems had also gone away, and I'm pleased as punch.
So regarding the bladder problems, the doctor that sent you for the potential operation you were going to have, did you ever go back and see him again?
I did see him once after I had the cystoscopy, because the problem he reckons I have is that I retain urine, so I can't empty my bladder properly because the internals aren't working; they're not right, basically. And if you retain urine like that, it sloshes around, and it's a really good place for bugs to grow and cause infections. And because he's got his own scanning device, and so he had me, and actually at the time that I went to see him, I had another UTI, so I wasn't feeling too great. I kept having to go to the toilet while I was talking to him, and I'd just pass, like thimblefuls, and he measured my bladder, and he said, "Oh, there's still," I think he said 300 ml left in the bladder, and I couldn't even get rid of it. Then this year, I went to see I found this keto doctor. I probably didn't mention it last time because I hadn't found it yet. I looked up, in Australia, we've got this Low Carbs Down Under network, and you can find keto doctors online. There are 3 in Tasmania. So I went to see Elizabeth, and she's fantastic. And so I told her what had been happening, and she said, "All right, well, we'll get more scans." And what they do is they scan your bladder. They work out the volume. Oh, and you've got to turn up like completely full. So you drink right up to when you're having the scan. They measure how much urine's in your bladder. Then they send you to the toilet. You're supposed to empty your bladder, and they come back and they measure it again, and they see how much is left, if any, which is what the urologist was doing last year. And I was still holding 200 mil, which is really bizarre because now I sleep right through the night. I don't get up to go to the toilet at all. And I've been measuring how much I pee because I've become quite obsessive about the whole thing. And there are times when I'll pee 350 to 450 mils, which is like a lot, And I can't see how I could still be hanging on to any more when I'm doing 450 mil peas. So anyway, I don't know, but if internally it's all just about gone back to the right shape, I don't see why I should be hanging on to anything. But
I mean, it's so good to hear that this is, in as far as the problems you're experiencing, it has resolved, and the inflammation that was potentially causing it has gone away.
It was interesting that this last doctor I saw actually mentioned inflammation, because the urologist, because they were convinced I had cancer to start with, and I mentioned inflammation. I said, I've had all these inflammation, like, I had the typical arthritis and knee pains, and which have all gone away. And I said, I can't see why my bladder couldn't be inflamed. And he just dismissed it out of sight at the time. this new guy that I saw last week, he's the first one to mention inflammation. Now, I'm absolutely convinced that that's what was wrong with me in the first place. Because I mean, inflammation is a terrible thing. Honestly, it's just incredible. When I see all the people on your channel, the different things that can go wrong with inflammation is amazing.
And just controlling that, it's almost like flipping a switch, you know, things just start to get better almost instantly.
Yeah, well, when I first started going keto after watching Dr. Berg's video, like, I could not believe that I had a result in 4 days. Like I was getting up 3-4 times during the night, every night. And then within 4 days, it completely went away. But then it came back, and it was the fructose in the fruit. Because, you know, Dr. Berg's, he's into eating fruit and leafy greens and all that stuff. And I've actually stopped watching his work now because he's into veggies and fruit, you know, and I can't be bothered. It's just a complete waste of time, as far as I'm concerned. But all the same, I've got to give him credit for sending me onto the correct path. So I haven't eaten any fruit in over a year. It's funny because this apple season, you know, because we've got these delicious organic apples here, and I actually bit into one, and it tasted strange. Like it just didn't taste like my apples used to. I spat it out. So I've eaten no fruit at all. I've consumed no fiber. I reckon since Christmas, I've probably consumed 1 or 2 avocados, and that's it. That's the amount of vegetable matter. I do like pickled cucumbers, but they're 99% water, more than likely, and vinegar. I just like the crunchiness. I do miss some aspects of the old diet, you know, and texture is one of them. I like crunchy things, but yeah, otherwise perfectly happy with what I'm eating.
It's funny you say that about the apples, because I had an occasion to I had a little bit of lemon juice quite a few months ago, like freshly squeezed lemon juice, not out of a bottle. And when I tasted it, it was like nothing I'd ever tasted before. It was completely not what I was expecting, because, you know, a lemon is sour. And the lemon juice, it was so sweet, and it had this weird aftertaste. And I was just like, I can't, there's just no way I could ever have this again. It's disgusting.
Actually, you just reminded me that I've told you a fib. I consume a lemon a day, because one of the things that I've been trying to do for my blood pressure is to take a lot of potassium. And so I've been making electrolytes. We've got a thing called a soda stream. I don't know if anyone, if they're common anywhere else apart from Australia. They're just a device that carbonates tap water. And so I started using electrolytes 18 months ago, but all the commercial stuff's got artificial colorings and flavorings and sugar, and I thought there's got to be a better way. So I started making my own. I bought potassium chloride, which I now mix with my table salt, and that's what I sold everything with. So it's half sodium chloride and half potassium chloride. And then I bought some potassium citrate and magnesium citrate in bulk on eBay, and I mixed that with salt in proportions like this. I think I weigh it, so it's fairly accurate. I weigh 100 grams of potassium citrate, 50 grams of magnesium citrate, 50 grams of sodium chloride, mix it all up in a blender, and I'll put 1 teaspoon of that mixture in 450 mils of carbonated water with lemon juice. So I squeeze a lemon, and I put the electrolytes in the lemon juice, because it dissolves in lemon juice a lot better than it does in water. I don't know why. So I mix it up in lemon juice, and then I pour the lemon juice with the electrolytes into the water, and I drink one of those every day. Well, almost every day. Sometimes I forget, but and I was really hoping that the potassium would help with my blood pressure as well. But it's not really helping. So I mean, it's not as high as Larry's. When Larry was talking about his blood pressure this morning, I was a bit shocked. I thought, well, thank God mine's not that high. But I'd like to get it back to normal if possible. One of the things that I've seen a few doctors online say is that if you've got high-ish blood pressure, but you haven't got the other comorbidities, so if you're not insulin resistant and you're not obese and what's the other one? Anyway, you're less. It's less likely to be a problem. So it's not as serious if you haven't got the other comorbidities. And I haven't. So I'm not hugely concerned, but it would be nice to have it down to normal levels again. The weird thing is that it did come down and it went back up again, and I can't understand that. Well, yeah, I don't want to be the first carnivore to die of a stroke.
Yeah. So, like, to get to this point over the last 12 months, how have you been eating day to day?
Most days I only eat twice. Like, I haven't eaten since it's 11:30 in Australia now. I haven't eaten since about 5:30 last night. I had a fairly early-ish dinner. And I did actually eat. Oh, I had a steak. That's right, because I had an unusual day. I had to drive my wife to the airport yesterday morning. So I had a steak for dinner at about 5:30. And I've eaten nothing since. And I'll probably have bacon and eggs when I'm finished talking to you. And I'm going to cook a chicken for tonight, and I'll eat that because I'm batching now, so I'm on my own for a couple of weeks. So I'll just live on this chicken for the next 2 or 3 or 4 days until I run out. But I ate a lot of. We recently bought a quarter of a beast. So I live in the country. We bought a quarter of a beast from one of the local farmers. It only cost $10 a kilo. Like, we save so much money on this. It's not funny. And yeah, so we got about 65 kilos of meat for $650, and that's what we eat. So we've got a wood cooker. We just put roast in the oven, and Glenda and I will live off that for 3 days, 4 days, depending. Because on top of that, we'll be eating bacon and eggs, so that the beef lasts a while. And I have the occasional tin of sardine if I feel a bit peckish at night, because my dinners are usually smaller than my lunch. So lunch is my main meal, and I often will go 24 hours. Like, actually, a classic one. We've got a camper van. So recently I went on my own. I went 200 kilometers up the road to go fishing. And I was away for 3 days, and I only ate 3 times.
Wow.
And I didn't feel the least bit starving or anything. In fact, I came back and I said to Glenda, I've only eaten 3 times in 3 days. And because, I wasn't bored. I had plenty to do. I didn't catch any fish, mind you, but that's a different story. But I had to do a lot of driving, obviously, because this van is pretty slow. So it took me all day to get there and all day to come back. And I spent, maybe a day and a half fishing and looking around. It's a beautiful place. Tasmania's a really nice place. So I ate 3 times in 3 days.
Yeah. So your wife, it sounds like your wife's joining you on this way of eating.
Oh yeah, she cheats a bit every now and again. Like, when I first started talking to you, I was chomping on the remains of her nuts. She likes macadamia nuts. She's left them behind, so I'm just having a couple of nuts now and again. And she bought 2 bananas recently and only ate one of them. The other one went off, so we had to throw it out. She cheats a bit, but I mean, she's doing great. She's lost a whole pile of weight too. I've lost 13 kilos now. She's probably lost 10, and all her issues are gone. Like she used to get chronic UTIs, as which anyway hasn't had one for probably 12 months. She used to get reflux, doesn't get that anymore. She used to get leaky gut, doesn't get that anymore. She sleeps a lot better. That's the other thing, talking about sleep. I've just weaned myself off my CPAP machine. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea 13 years ago, and I've been sleeping with a CPAP machine ever since. And I was pretty sure that I no longer had it, because the machine, if you bother in the morning, you can press a button and it'll tell you how much you've been snoring, how much you've stopped breathing. It gives you an index. So there's a snoring index and an apnea index, and they've been 0 for ages. So I thought, I'll give it. It took me a while because I'm so used to it. After 13 years, you can imagine sleeping with this mask on. I was finding it hard to go to sleep. I even cheated. At a friend of mine's suggestion, he said, just put the mask on without the machine not being turned on, and I would be right. I'd go to sleep then. But now I don't bother. In fact, I should put the machine away and pack it away somewhere. Maybe I don't know.
So it had almost become like a security blanket.
Yeah. It was funny actually. But anyway, I'm off that now, and I know for a fact that I'm not mouth breathing at all. Like I'll wake up in the morning, even with a machine on. I often used to wake up with a dry mouth, but not anymore. It's fine. I don't snore at all, because I think it was Paul Mason who said that when you've got fatty liver, the other thing that can happen is you can have a fatty tongue, and that will cause blockages. It'll cause you to snore and stop breathing. Obviously, I've lost all my visceral fat, so yeah, I'm fine now.
That's awesome.
Better, actually.
Yeah, there's nothing better as well than waking up and not having that really, really super dry mouth, right? Yeah, it's a horrible feeling. Yeah.
Have you had apnea?
I don't think I was ever suffering from that. No one's ever told me I snore or anything like that. But until I started Carnivore, I couldn't lie down and breathe through my nose.
It's amazing the difference it makes.
Yeah, I used to have to sleep with water next to my bed, because if I woke up in the middle of the night, like my throat would just be so dry. So yeah, and a few weeks on Carnivore, that just went away.
And apnea is so bad for you. The reason I was originally diagnosed with it is like in 2010, I was bitten by a tick in Queensland. There's lots of ticks in Queensland. And I got something like Lyme disease. I was really, really sick for over 12 months. I had chronic fatigue. I wish I'd known about the carnivore diet back then, honestly. Anyway, the doctor said, you should go and have a sleep study done. And so you go to this place and you sleep there all night, and they put all these sensors all over your head, your chest, on your fingers, and they monitor absolutely everything about you. And the thing that goes on your finger is a blood oxygen monitor. And when the results came back, I went to see my GP, and he said that at least once during the night, my blood oxygen level dropped to 72. And he said, that's incompatible with life. I'll never forget it. And that's when we thought, I have to have a CPAP machine, which sort of fixed it. But had I realized what could be done with the carnivore diet 12 years ago, God, I really wonder how much better my life could have been for the last 12 years. Because you'll never know, or I'll never know. Yeah, my biggest regret is not finding out about the carnivore diet a long time ago.
Mm.
Because there were people doing it back then, like Eric Westman. He's been carnivore, or he's been keto at least anyway, for a long time. I think even Sean Baker, he's been carnivore for 10 years, isn't he?
Yeah, something like that. It's yeah. I'm the same, like I tried low carb 20 odd years ago, and I wish I'd never given it up, because basically what I was doing was almost carnivore anyway. And yeah, my health would have improved so much when I was younger, which would have been much better now.
It's funny looking back, to think back that like in the 70s and the 80s, we were all told you've got to eat more fiber. We were buying those brain flake breakfast cereals, and you think, why did I ever do this? Um, and now I find so many things like there's all these people who go on and on about the Mediterranean diet. Well, I just adore Italian food. Like I was literally on the Mediterranean diet because I'd make my own pizzas. I made my own tomato sauce. We ate lots of pasta, and I'd make risotto at least once a week. I'd make Moroccan tagines. All of this stuff is Mediterranean cuisine, and none of it was any good for me. Now I now realise. So it's just a joke.
Yeah.
So it's actually a couple of other things I thought I'd mention. Like I spend quite a bit of time on social media when the weather's no good, like it is at this time of the year, and I've for some strange reason I've been bombarded by these vegan pages on my Facebook page, and so I can't help it. I just have to leave a comment, say you guys are all wrong. This is what you should be doing. But what's really surprised me is the number of other people commenting saying the same thing. Like they talk about inflammation, chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, omega-3s, all of this something. There's a lot of people out there who've found this out now, and they're commenting on all these vegan pages. Yeah, it's really interesting. I used to, when I first arrived in Tasmania, I used to get a lot of woofers. If you know, a woofer is a willing worker on an organic farm, and some of them would be vegan. And in fact, the worst ones I reckon I've had were vegans. And in the end, I had to put on my website, on my contact site, that I wouldn't take vegans anymore because they wanted me to buy them all these expensive plant-based milks. And I kept saying to them, even back then, I didn't know anything about the carnivore diet. I'd say, these things are really bad for you. Oh, you shouldn't be drinking milk and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, and it's expensive because you're supposed to feed them. Now they get free board and food in exchange for working 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. So 25 hours worth of labor. And a lot of them were very good. In fact, would work a lot longer than that. But yeah, in the end, I thought I can't hack these vegans anymore. So, and now I haven't, since COVID. I've had no woofers to speak of.
Okay.
Well,
so were those people like backpackers and things like that?
yeah. In fact, the worst one I ever had, he was French because I'm French too. So I used to attract a lot of French people because I speak fluent French. And this kid, he was only like 20, and he didn't do anything for 3 days. He was so sick. He kept getting headaches and stuff, and he never stopped eating. He just ate and ate and ate, and honestly, he could not keep up with me, and I was 50 years older than him. And it was around that stage I thought, I don't want to have any more of these people. They're just a waste of time. Yeah. So, and I was trying to grow vegetables at the time, and he was helping me with the garden. And I used to get heaps of compost, and I get manure. And I said to him, "See, you cannot grow fruit and veg without animal manure." And he said, "Oh, anyway." So I'm over it now. In fact, I've completely taken down the whole market garden. I used to have a market garden behind the house, and I've turned it back to pasture. So I've got goats in there now. They're eating the grass. I've completely abandoned the whole veggie garden's gone.
Oh,
Because
okay.
there's no point growing veggies. I'm not going to eat them.
Yeah. So if you were going to give one of your friends advice about getting started with carnivore, what would you tell them?
What I say to people now is, you cannot know how much better you can feel until you ditch all the carbs and sugars and seed oils and fruit and vegetables. Because I mean, I have to admit, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that I'd be doing this, because I've been growing fruit and veg for 25 years. And like everybody else, I was absolutely convinced that it was impossible to live without fruit and vegetables. I've always eaten meat. Don't get me wrong. I've always eaten meat, but I never thought of it as being something that you could eat exclusively and not only survive but thrive and get a lot better. So that's what I say to people. Just give it a try. You will be as amazed as I was when I first started it.
Nice.
But having said that, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. It's just incredible how few people. I've had some influence. One of my best mates down here, he's taken it up, and he's doing really well. And see, the problem is, a lot of people start carnivore when things go wrong, which is what happened with me, right? But why wait until things go wrong? Like, if you can improve your health before you get sick, it's
No, I think that's a good point. Like, why wait? I wish I hadn't waited.
mm,
Because even if you're not quote unquote sick, you still feel 100 times better getting
that's
all the
right.
carbs and processed food out of your diet, right?
Mm, no doubt about it.
Mm. Yeah. So, Mike, how can people reach out to you?
Well, I have got a blog that I've been running for at least 15 years. I think it's called Damn the Matrix, and I've put up. This is really ironic, actually. I've put up in the last 12 months. Well, actually, since discovering Eric Berg, because when I first discovered all that, I put up stuff about Eric Berg and how he'd influenced my health 18 months ago, and it's really weird how I've lost a lot of support. A lot of people have just left my blog. They're just no longer following me. The number of views that I get now is way lower than I used to get. I've had people make comments. Oh, you can't say you can't eat fruit and vegetables, and they just leave. And I'm like, oh, I don't care, Like, blogging isn't a popularity contest. You share information, take it or leave it. That's my opinion of it. Like, I was listening to Larry this morning. It's interesting how in no time at all, how many followers he's got on YouTube. And I'm thinking, well, maybe YouTube is a better way of doing this than a blog. But there's already so many people on YouTube. I can't be bothered starting my own channel. I want to go fishing and catch some trout. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life.
It's really interesting, when you kind of talk about getting rid of the fruit or whatever, and people take such offense to it, and it's like, you can't do that, you can't tell me not to do that thing, and it's like, no one's telling you not to do it. It's just, that's what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and that's what makes you feel better. You do what you want.
Well, it's like I said, take it or leave it. Like, I'm just giving you some
Mm.
advice. It's good advice because it works, and it's worked for thousands of people now. You must be getting near to 700 people by now. Do you know? Like,
Interviews.
yeah.
Yeah, I counted this morning, 550.
Oh, I thought you were already over 600.
No,
But anyway, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
But see, I quote. Well, I share links to your video, and And people say, oh, it's just anecdote. Yeah, but I say, yeah, but you know what? Thousands of anecdotes equals a study. I reckon what you've done is equivalent to a randomized controlled trial, because all the people that have talked to you over the last couple of years, they've all been dedicated. Like they're not saying, oh, I can't remember what I ate last week, because they know what they ate last week. And they have absolutely no excuse. They've got no reason to lie to you or cheat or any of that. And yours isn't the only one. There's other channels where they interview people, hundreds and hundreds of people. There must be tens of thousands of people on the internet now who've all had results like we've had.
Yeah. So, Mike, I'll link to your blog below. Thank you so much for coming on again and sharing that update with us, and congratulations.
Thank you. It was really good news. When I got the letter I took a photo of it and I put that on my blog. I did an update on that page that I sent you. So there's a picture of a small paddle letter saying that no longer required. You know? I thought that's a real win for Carnivore.